Welcome to Fur Talk. Today's episode is going to be rather interesting. To anyone who hasn't seen any of my previous videos, I have talked about finding the right breed for you. And that's very important. And it's not just about what is good for you, it's also what's good for the dog. If you were to say, be someone who wants a dog so that you can sit on a sofa and drink a glass of wine in the evening, relaxing, maybe watch some reality TV, something like that, and you get a Malinois or a Border Collie or a Doberman, that's not going to work real well. These dogs are high energy and driven dogs. Those dogs would be great for somebody who, when they get home from work, wants to go out and do a 2 or 3 mile run after the dog gets conditioned to the point where they can do 2 or 3 miles, but they can do it. Now, you're somebody who wants to come in from work and go for a run. You don't want a Pekingese to go with you on that run. It's not going to work. So you need to sit down and realistically make a list of what you are looking for in a dog. What reason do you want a dog? Do you want it for companionship? Do you want it to compete? Do you want to do sports? Do you want someone to snuggle with? All are very good reasons. All are excellent reasons. And there is a breed out there, or a combination of breeds. If you want to do rescue, or if you want to do a mixed breed, there are lots of options out there. So sit down and realistically list, what are you looking for in a dog? This is going to make the dog happier too. Once you have your list, you want to start looking at the different breeds and start narrowing down what you're looking for. If you want a dog to play in the backyard with the kids, do you want a dog that will protect property? Do you want a dog to go out and do therapy work? There are so many options, and every one of them are legitimate reasons to want a dog. All of them are legitimate things to look for in a dog. If you have a breed that is super shy and doesn't want to be around people unless it's specifically socialized from the time they are very young puppies, they're not going to be good dogs to go out in public like that. If you have a very social dog, they're going to be miserable all by themselves all the time, just with you and nobody else, and just staying at home and not ever going out in public. So you have to think about, what was the dog bred to do? What's going to make that dog happy? And is this a dog that's going to make you happy? And once you've narrowed down the list to say 10 breeds, now you want to start talking to people who have those breeds and narrow it down a little bit further. And you want to look at things like, are you willing to do a lot of grooming? Are you willing to put up with slobber? Now, I'm going to go off on a lot of tangents. I'm going to give you a lot of information as far as dogs I've had in the past and students I've had. Remember, I have been a dog trainer for over 20 years. And I have had a lot of dogs in my classes. Most of the AKC breeds I've had, with the exception of just a small handful of the older breeds, and a lot of the newer breeds I haven't had because I haven't had an active class in a couple of years. One of the things, if you're thinking about a dog, do you mind slobber? Me personally, I don't mind it in class so much, but I don't really want a dog that slobbers, me personally. But if you don't mind carrying around a slobber rag, go for it. I had a dog in my class one time that shook its head, and I had slobber dripping off the ceiling. Yeah, and it wasn't a small room either. So think about what you're willing to put up with, what you want in a dog, what you not want in a dog, and once you get those ideas in mind and you narrow it down to say 10 breeds, now you want to talk to people who actually have those breeds. Call those breed clubs. Look up the National Breed Club for Cocker Spaniels. Look up the National Breed Club for Boston Terriers. Look up the National Breed Club for whichever breed you're looking at, and find the local club nearest to you. Once you find that, they have a list of phone numbers, and you want to call people on that list. There will be somebody, usually go through the breeder referral. They tend to either answer the questions themselves or will send you to a breeder who can answer those questions. And just let them know, I'm narrowing down my list of breeds that I would like to have, and I want to talk to somebody with your breed that can answer some questions for me. I had a wonderful lady who has since passed when I was looking at Shelties. And she sat and talked to me for a good 2 hours on the phone. And she made sure not only to answer my questions, but she asked me questions to make sure that Shelties would fit into my lifestyle, to make sure that Shelties would be happy in my home. And I cannot express my gratitude to Angela enough for that. She made sure that this was exactly the breed that I needed to get. And so do the same thing. Be realistic and ask questions. Now, when you ask those questions, don't just ask, what is so great about this breed? Also ask, what's not great about the breed? What are the problems with the breed? With Shelties, if you ask me, what's so great about Shelties? Oh, they're great dogs. They're wonderful with kids. They have really sweet little personalities. They are extremely intelligent. They're very loyal. They love their families. They're extremely devoted to their families. They will learn anything you want to teach them. What's so bad about Shelties? They bark. That's number one on anybody's list. They bark. They bark a lot. Trust me. They will bark at anything. But why is it? Think about why the breed was bred the way they were. What was the breed bred to do? Shelties were bred not only to be herding dogs, but also to be all-round farm dogs. They were bred on the islands north of Scotland, where it's very rocky, very hilly. So they would herd up and down those steep hills. Now, if they were to herd, like, say, a border collie and get down and do the stair, they would be looking into a rock. If they were to nip, like a heeler or a corgi, they'd be biting rocks. So what do? They herd with their voices. Also, I mentioned they're all-around farm dogs. They do a lot of fishing up there, and they put their fish out to dry in the sun on racks. What else do they have up around the islands? Birds. So Shelties are bred to jump and bark to keep the birds away from the fish. So that explains why they bark. That also explains why they're really good at running, climbing, jumping. That's why they're excellent at agility. You also have to brush them a lot. They shed. They shed mainly twice a year. In the spring, obviously, for the winter coat, and in the fall, when the new winter coat is coming in, it pushes out the last of the old winter coat. They're also shy around strangers. They have all kinds of courage if you're outside the fence. They will bark up and down at our neighbor who walks his dogs down our road. But let that neighbor come up to the fence or come inside the fence, and guess what? They will back you up completely from behind your legs. They will never, ever be a guard dog. But they make excellent watchdogs because they're going to tell you every little thing that happens in that neighborhood. And trust me, they have opinions on everything. Just ask Hank. He and I get into the biggest arguments over what color the unicorn in the backyard is, whether it's pink or purple. My husband, he rolls laughing when Hank and I start doing that. We will start arguing about anything, and he gets so serious about arguing with me. It is hilarious. A lot of people don't like that barking. They hate the barking. I don't mind it. In fact, I enjoy speaking with Hank like that. In fact, I wouldn't mind having a husky so that the two of us could have quite the conversation. There are breeds that do have the conversations with you, and there's some breeds that absolutely will not. There are some breeds that do not enjoy talking to you. So look at that as well. Now you've narrowed your list of 10 down to 5. Now you're ready to start actually going out and looking at dogs and puppies. Let's decide on the age you're looking for. I've had everything from newborns that I have bred myself all the way up to seniors. In fact, the last dog that I lost, her name was Suki, and she was the last dog that I bred. She was in my hands when she was born, and she was in my hands when she passed. She passed as a very senior. And that was a couple of years ago. I've had all across the gamut. And if I were to get another rescue, and yes, I've had rescues, I've had pound puppies, I've had dogs I've bred, dogs other people have bred, side of the road dogs, dogs people have given me, dogs I've bought off the internet and off classified ads. I've had them all across the board, so I can speak to all of these. The only things that I don't like are the puppy mills and the kill shelters, things like that. Other than that, they all have their pros and cons, and we'll talk about them. But if I were to get another rescue dog, it would be a senior. That's my favorite age, actually. A lot of people, their favorite age is the puppies. No, mine is the seniors. Seniors are awesome dogs. They are so funny. They are so opinionated. And they are oh so sweet. I've even mentioned to my husband, we have 2 dogs right now. One is 7. The other one turns 8 on Saturday. When they get older and one of them passes, then I told my husband I want to get a senior because the remaining dog will be a senior. And I want to get another senior to keep them company. And I want to foster it, or if possible, adopt it. A lot of times whenever dogs are that much of of a senior, you can only foster them. A lot of times they won't let you adopt because they want to keep an eye on the dogs themselves, and which is fine because it would be a long-term foster, be their final home. I only want to do one at a time because I want to be able to devote attention to the 2 dogs. So when one passes, then I would get another senior to keep the remaining 1 company until I can't keep dogs anymore. So decide on the age you want to get. Are you willing to put in the effort for potty training, teething, initial training? Do you want an older puppy that's still got that puppy energy but has gone through the terrible 2s, has gone through the potty training, has got basic training under their belt? Do you want an adult that's more stable, more laid back? Do you want a younger adult who has got the growth in and now they're ready to start doing serious work as far as things like pulling or agility or dock diving or any of the sports that require a lot of physical activity that can't be done before the age of 1 or 1.5, depending on the breed? Do you want a dog that is more laid back, more like a senior, like I would be looking for? Decide your age group and go at it from that point of view as well. So we're going to start with the breeders. First of all, let me say up front, not all breeders are bad. Let me repeat that. Not all breeders are bad. There are puppy mills out there. Yes, there are. There's backyard breeders out there. Yes, there are. But don't let them taint the good breeders, the responsible breeders. You want to find a good, responsible breeder. The easiest way to do that is to go through your local breed club or the one closest to you. They have puppy referrals, and you can talk to them not only about the puppies, but also other options as well. So what's so different about one of the more responsible breeders versus a puppy mill or a backyard breeder? A puppy mill and a backyard breeder do it for profit. They do it to make money. They see that litter of puppies and they see dollar signs. They don't do health checks. They don't do guarantees. They send out the puppies a lot of times way too young. They overbreed their females. They don't keep in mind the breed standard, which is a list of physical attributes that, when combined, make sure the dog is able to do what it was bred to do and is physically sound. They don't background check, and I don't mean that in the way of a police. I mean that in the way of a few simple questions. They don't background check any of their buyers. In the case of puppy mills, they do mass breedings. They don't care about the dog's welfare. They keep them in crates, in dirty conditions, that sort of thing. So those are things you want to avoid. So if you see any of those red flags, know that you're at a puppy mill or a backyard breeder and walk away. If you go to a responsible breeder, whether it's a hobby breeder or a show breeder, you're going to get very specific things. You're going to be able to see the pedigree. You're going to be able to pull the pedigree up. Keep in mind, an AKC listing on a dog is great because you can pull the pedigree, but it does not guarantee the dog in and of itself. All it is a club registry. That's it. It does not guarantee your dog. If they're using AKC, UKC, CKC, or any of the other breed registries to guarantee the dog, walk away. That does not guarantee anything. Hank is AKC and UKC registered, but those registrations do not mean anything as far as being guaranteed anything about him. What I was able to do is I was able to look at the parents. I was able to look at the breeder. I was able to look at other siblings. Hank has a older sibling, same mother and father, the litter before his, who's a national agility champion. Hank's litter, his parents are service dogs. Hank and his siblings went on to be service dogs. That's the reason why I waited on his particular breeding, is because I was looking for a service dog, a diabetic alert dog. When you look at responsible breeders, they're going to give you certain things, though. They're going to, in the case of the breeds that need to have HIPS certified, they're going to give you the HIP certifications. They're going to tell you what levels they're at. And I'll do a video on the different health checks. There's some breeds that you're going to need to have the knees checked. You're going to have the eyes certified. Different things, the heart. There's different certifications that you want to look for in the parents. If you go to visit the puppies themselves, Keep in mind, if you see mama, don't look at her physical condition. Let me give you an example with a Sheltie. When a Sheltie female has her puppies, about the time they start weaning, she's going to start losing coat because she's lost a lot of nutrients taking care of those puppies. She's going to blow her whole coat out. That coat is gone. She's going to look like somebody shaved her down in patches. She is going to look rough. Even though she will be in excellent condition physically, she's going to look rough. Ask any human mama who's had a baby, especially if she's had more than one babies, like twins or triplets. She's going to look rough. She's going to feel rough. Same for a female dog after she's weaned the puppies or close to weaning the puppy. She's going to look rough. She's going to feel rough. So just keep that in mind. And you're not always going to have daddy on site. Sometimes daddy belongs to somebody else. They had to ship in the sperm. They had to do any number of things. In the case of one of my dogs, in fact, Suki, the one I was speaking of earlier, in the case of her grandmother, I had to drive 3 states away, leave her for a week, and then go back and pick her back up to get her bred. I ended up with 6 puppies out of that litter, and I kept 2 for myself, one of which was the father of Suki. So you've gone to the breeder's house. You've seen that it's in decent condition. The dogs are kept well. You see no red flags that show you that this particular breeder is going to be a puppy mill or a backyard breeder. They actually show you health certificates. Some of the dogs they have maybe shown in conformation and won championships, or they have shown in sport and they have gotten titled in sports of some variety. And so you know the dog is well bred. Keep in mind when you go to a breeder, especially if you go to a show breeder, you're going to have the option of getting an older puppy as well or an adult. What am I talking about there? When a puppy with a breeder who also shows in conformation, they will grow out the puppies to 8 weeks. At 8 weeks, they will go over the puppy. They will stand them up on a table. They will check their angulations. They will check their back. They will check their tails. They will check the headset. They will check different things like that. They'll also check size and weight. This is notorious with Shelties, by the way. They go way over and way under in the same litter. You're going to have a teeny tiny and a giant in the same litter. Trust me, been there, done that. But they're going to check them at 8 weeks. And at 8 weeks, they're going to have their first call. And that's when they say, now this one's going to go way oversized. And this one, no, this one's going to go way undersized. These are going to stay in size, so we'll keep those. And the ones that we know for sure are going to go out of size, those are the ones that we'll go ahead and sell at 8 to 10 weeks. At 12 weeks, they'll turn around and do this again. And they're going to see how they're developing. They're going to see which ones are actually staying in standard, which ones may have a crooked tooth come in. That crooked tooth is going to cost them a championship, so that one goes to a pet home or a performance home. Perfectly well-bred dog. All the health checks. Excellent dog. Could be a champion if it wasn't for that crooked tooth. But now that dog gets to be an agility champion, or gets to be a therapy dog, or gets to play in the backyard with your kids, or gets to snuggle with you on the sofa. Still great dogs. Still very well-bred dogs. But for that one flaw is going to keep them out of the show ring. Think of it this way. You may have a kid who is excellent at football, in pee-wee football. Same for middle school football. He's a star athlete in high school. He makes first round in college, but he's not quite at the caliber to go to the NFL. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the kid. The kid's probably excellent at sports, but just not at quite that level. So think about conformation shows as the NFL of the dog show world. These are the top elite dogs. That kid that played college ball, he's still a great ball player. Probably go on to be an excellent coach somewhere. Probably go on to do other things related to sports or not even related to sports, but would take his experiences and go do other things. That's the same for dogs. Think about it the same way. Still a great athlete, just not on that top tier level. So that's what the show breeders are doing. They are trying to narrow down to the top tier dog out of the litter, the top pick. And it's different points along the way, usually about a month to 2 months apart, they will go through and recull the litter. That's why you're able to get the older dogs. So as they get older, they're going to go ahead and potty train the whole litter, because guess what? One of them they're going to keep, most likely, maybe two. And so they're going to potty train all of them, because the one that they keep or the two that they keep need to be potty trained as well. So they're going to socialize these dogs. They're going to potty train the dogs. They're going to train the dogs. You're not going to wait to the last minute to train a dog that's going to go into a show ring. You're going to go ahead and start training early, so that you're going to go ahead and train all of them, because you don't know which one you're going to end up with. You may have a favorite out of them, but you're going to wait until they grow out to make sure you have your final pick. So you're going to train all the dogs. So the older puppies, as they are culled out, they're going to have some training. Some of them are going to be past the teething phase. Some are going to be potty trained. Some are going to have basic commands. Some are going to be excellent at loose leash walking, even though they're huge dogs, huge puppies. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you're going to have dogs that go out, they show, they get their championship, they breed a couple of litters. In general, a show breeder will breed 1, 2, maybe 3 litters. It's rare that they're going to go much over that. And then they're going to have the dogs spayed or neutered. Now, you've got more puppies coming up you want to show. You don't want to have your household so full of dogs that you're not able to give attention to the new ones coming up. So what do? You find what's called a forever home for your champions. Some will go to junior handlers. Those are kids who are learning to show dogs. Many of them are the kids or grandkids of people who currently show. Some just happen to show up wanting to be a handler. And trust me, if you do this right, it is extremely time consuming. A lot of work goes into being a handler, but good money is involved as well. Some of these dogs go on to performance households, agility, dock diving, that sort of thing. You're going to have some that go on to be therapy dogs. They love being out in a crowd at this point. They've been well socialized. They are used to people putting their hands on them, going over them for inspection. So they're fine with people petting them. They tend to be rather calm dogs. They're not as excitable as if they were not raised in a show environment. So these are great dogs to consider as well. They're a little older. They're usually 4, 5, 6 years old, but they're good dogs. They're great if you want an adult dog of a specific breed. And then there's also your seniors. Now, keep in mind that these same breed clubs can also get you in touch with the breed-specific rescue, the Golden Retriever Rescue, the German Shepherd Rescue, the Irish Wolfhound Rescue, the Whippet Rescue. That way, you can get a rescue dog of a specific breed. Still, you've got your rescue dog if that's what you prefer, but you've also got the breed that you want. So it's the best of both worlds. And those people will do inspections. And what do I mean by that? Yeah, they're probably going to call your vet. If you don't have a vet, go around and interview several vets in your area. Find one that you click with and let them know, I'm planning on getting a dog. They're probably going to call you for a reference. Let them know that I have been in. I may not have had a dog with you before, but let them know that I have spoken with you. And a lot of times they will accept that because they just want the name of a vet to know that you are serious about taking the dog to get it cared for. A lot of times they will come out and do a on-site inspection. They don't want a spotless house. They don't want a 5-acre yard that's fenced in with a 9-foot security fence. That's not what they're looking for. What they're looking for is this a home or situation that would be appropriate for this breed? Is this person a hoarder? Is this person who leaves chemicals laying out? Is this a person who has a tiny baby laying in the floor with an aggressive breed? Things like that. As far as the yard goes, they want to make sure that, first of all, if it's a dog that stays primarily outside, that there is a secure area for the dog to be, that the fence is intact, the fence is tall enough that the dog is not going to jump over it. If it's a working breed, a busy breed of some variety, they need to know that you're going to be able to meet those needs. For instance, if you are in an apartment and you want one of these busier breeds, then you need to be able to show that you're going to take this dog on runs, that you've got a large local dog park that you can take the dog to just down the block, that the dog is going to be able to get their daily exercise needs met. If you can show that, they've got no problem with most of your setups. Now, I will put a little caveat in here. As far as rescues go, they tend to look down on people who travel full-time in RVs. I know this because I traveled full-time in an RV for about 10 years. Breeders are more forgiving for something like that because they understand being on the road traveling to dog shows. As long as you're able to show your RV is sufficient, that the dog can be in there comfortably, and that you're going to provide for the dog's needs, they're a lot more open to you being full-time in an RV. And if you notice, easily a half to 2/3 of people who travel full-time in RVs have a dog. Some of them, they got the dogs before they went full-time, others after. But it depends on the breed. It depends on where you get the dog from. But don't get your feelings hurt if they turn you down because you are mobile. It is what it is. They're just looking out for the dogs, and there are other people who are more understanding. Now, I've touched a little bit on rescues. Suppose you want a mixed breed. Suppose, I'm not one of these people who I want a purebred dog. I am fine with a mix. Well, you want to know what the mix is. Let me give you some examples of dogs I've had. I've had a Belgian Tervuren Lab mix. I've had an Akita Canadian Timberwolf mix. Yeah, that one was an interesting dog. It took all of my training, all of my experience to work with that dog, but he was an excellent dog. And get this, his name was Wolfie. Named that on my 2 oldest kids, who were very young at the time. I think one was 2 years old, the other one was 5 years old, and I'll let them name the dog. They named him Wolfie. But he was the best trail riding dog I ever had. I've also had a Golden Retriever Cocker Spaniel mix. And I've had a Boxer Lab mix. I've had a lot of different mixes before, but you want to know what goes into those. Now keep in mind, what have I had? I've had some very active dogs. I had Akita Canadian Timberwolf mix. That dog never slowed down. Like I said, he was an excellent trail riding dog. I've had a Belgian Tervuren Lab mix. Very busy dog. I've had the Boxer Lab mix. Very busy dog. So you see a theme there. I've had dogs on large pieces of property who were out trail riding, playing with the kids. They were busy. If you wanted a mix that you could snuggle with, you're going to look for mixes that have quieter breeds, the slower breeds. At the end of each of my regular videos, not the breed videos, but the regular videos, I'm going to pose a question. I'm going to give you a scenario, and I'm going to ask you, what breed would you recommend? And then I will come back and give you the breeds that I would recommend. My last one was I posed 80-year-old grandma who wants a companion. Who would you recommend? I'm going to give you my recommendations in a few minutes. But you want to keep in mind, what are you wanting the dog for? So keep in mind the breed. So you've got a list of 5 breeds that fit your criteria. Now you're going into a rescue, you're going into a pound, you're going into a shelter, and you have this list of 5 breeds, and you say, I've narrowed down what I want to these 5 breeds. Can you help me? And they can look at your list and say, okay, yeah, we've got dogs that meet 3 of these, but not the other 2. And then you can say, what ages are they? Can I meet them? And then that way you can narrow down what might possibly click with your family and then actually meet the dogs. Whenever I think about meeting the dogs, I think about a TV show I used to watch all the time, Pit Bulls and Parolees. They did the Pit Bulls. They started in California. They ended up in Louisiana. She still runs the whole thing. They just aren't on Animal Planet anymore. You can find her on Facebook and some other places as well. I follow her on Facebook. And she would find out what the people needed as far as personality goes and age goes. And then she would bring out 3 options. And she would watch them with each of the 3 options and see how the dog reacted and how they reacted. And then would narrow it down. If none of those 3 actually worked, she could narrow it down from there. Okay, this one didn't work because of this reason. That one didn't work because of that reason. And she was able to fine tune it till she was able to find the dog that would meet what they needed. The same thing. You might have to look a little bit to find the right fit. Don't just jump on any dog that you see just because they look cute. Keep in mind, what was the dog bred to do? This is not just for you. This is to keep the dog themselves happy. If you want a happy dog, make sure you're able to get a dog that you're able to work with them in such a way that meets their needs. That's very important. Also, look at the shelter situation. Is it a dirty shelter? Is it an overcrowded shelter? Don't let them guilt trip you into getting something that's not going to work for your family. This dog is going to be with your family depending on on the breed you get and the age you get, anywhere from a couple of years to as many as 12, 15, close to 20 years if you get certain breeds. Are you willing to put that much effort, that much time, that much money, that much energy into a dog that doesn't fit with your family? Now, with both the shelter rescue and also with the breeders, you're going to have contracts. Look the contracts over very well. With the breeders, you're going to have certain health guarantees because they can guarantee it. Because they've had the dogs, they have tested the dogs, they know what's going on with the dogs. And no, shelter dogs, rescues are not healthier than bred dogs. The difference is when a dog comes in off the street into a rescue, you don't know the dog's background. With a dog that's bred, you do. So you know what to test for. You walk into Walmart and you find two random people. They look very similar in age. They look very similar in health. But you do health screening on both. One's been to the doctor and knows that they have a heart condition or cancer. The other one's never been to a doctor. I don't need a doctor. I'm healthy. But you don't know with that other person because they haven't been to the doctor. They haven't had any tests run. They haven't had an examination. They don't know if there's something going on inside them that they just don't feel or doesn't show on the outside. They could be eaten up with cancer and not know it. They could have a heart condition and not know it until they have a massive heart attack. So to say blanket across the board, bred dogs are bad, rescue dogs are good, they're healthier, blah, blah, blah. No. Dogs are different. The bred dogs, especially the responsibly bred dogs, you know the background. You know the family history. The dogs off the street, you don't know. Now, if the dog comes in and if the rescue or shelter goes through the typical testing for the breed or breeds that are in that dog, and then they can certify that, no, this dog has good hips. No, this dog has a good heart. No, this dog has good eyes. Then you can say for a mixed breed, it's a healthy dog, but you're not going to get that guarantee. So that's something you're going to find different on the two contracts is the guarantee. Another thing you're going to find is spay and neuter. This is something that I am very persnickety at. A lot of rescues will send a dog out spayed or neutered at 8 weeks of age. That is bad in my book. Why is that? You don't want overpopulation. That's fine. You don't want overpopulation, but growth hormones are released at different stages of growth in different ways. Some of them have to do with actual growth. Some have to do with mental growth. There have been studies out that show that if you spay or neuter too young, you end up with behavioral and physical problems when the dog gets older. If you wait until the dog is full grown, whether it be a toy breed at 9 months, a medium breed at 12 months, a larger breed at 14 to 18 months, a giant breed at 24 months. Wait till they're full grown if at all possible. With the breeders, they're going to follow up with you if they come to you not spayed or neutered. They're going to follow up with you. They're going to follow up with your vet to make sure that you keep that appointment. And a lot of times they're not going to sign the registration over to you until you complete the spay or neuter. If they know that you are competing in sport or something like that, before they're spayed or neutered, they're going to have to sign off on your competition registration forms. But they're not going to have a problem with that because if your dog from their kennel does really well in competition, that shines back on their kennel. So they're going to encourage you to do that. Now, if you get a dog from a breeder that you want to show, they tend to have a tiered plan where you pay the puppy price up front and then you show the dog to a certain level, a certain number of points, a certain number of majors, and you pay a little extra, and then when you finish a championship, you pay the final amount, and then full ownership reverts to you. Or you continue on as a co-owner with you as primary and them as secondary. But that's a whole other set of circumstances, and it's very specific to if you decide you want to show in confirmation. With your rescues and with your shelters, they're going to have a fairly simple contract with you. It's not going to have anywhere near as much information on it as the breeder one is. They're not going to have the health background. That's primarily up to you. They may chip in from their resources if it's a known issue, like they come in being treated for heartworms. They may either keep the dog through the heartworm treatments and then you get the dog, or if you are a experienced owner, they may go ahead and release the dog to you, but they will pay for you to continue with the heartworm treatments, that sort of thing. But that's on a case-by-case basis. Remember, not all rescues are the same. Some are great, some are not. So just keep an eye out for that. Also, if you want to contribute to a local rescue or to a local shelter, please do it locally. Don't go through the national ones. Several national ones, and I'm not going to give their names. One begins with the letter P, one begins with the letter H. I'm not going to say their names because I don't want to be sued. But if you go to their websites, go to their mission statements, that sort of thing, go to comments about them, you're going to see that they're not exactly what they purport to be. One of them happens to run the highest kill shelter in the country. One of them, the owner made a statement at one point that if they had their way, they would discontinue any animal ownership within 2 generations. And we're talking animal generations. They would make sure everything was spayed and neutered. That's not just pets, but also farm animals. And there would be no animals kept in captivity, and everybody would be vegans. So stay local. Stay with organizations that you can actually physically and go to the organization. There are so many of them out there. I specifically like the ones that involve working with veterans and service dogs. And there is a winery here close by that one of their bottles of wine, if you buy it, a portion of the proceeds goes to a local vet for payment on service dogs for veterans, their vet bills, which is a great thing to do. I love that idea. Now, moving on. Used to, it was classified in the newspaper, which there are still some, but not often. But there's also Facebook Marketplace, there's Pet Finder, there's a lot of different places you can do online looking for dogs. Now, these tend to be oopsie litters. These tend to be dogs that were pulled from rescue. These tend to be, in some cases, puppy mills and backyard breeders. So just be very careful. Some are scams. Don't give monetary information. Don't give personal information over the computer. I cannot express that enough. There are scammers out there, and they use these vectors to do that. So make sure you're careful about where you put your money, how you do it. When you do get in touch with these people, ask a lot of questions. If you don't feel comfortable going to their homes, ask to meet in a neutral location. Sometimes it's a parking lot. If you do a parking lot meetup, make sure it's a well-known parking lot. I picked up one dog one time from somebody I'd been talking with for a while on the internet. In fact, it was Autumn. And we met at a neutral location. It was halfway in between both of our locations because we were so far apart. Not far enough to fly, but far enough that it would have been a horrible drive. We're talking 3 hours in one direction for each of us. So we met in the middle. And we met at a mall. And we met near the security office at the mall for both their safety and for mine. And we made the transfer there. I had already made arrangements to release the money to them, which I did at the time I picked up Autumn. And they saw me transfer the money then, and they went ahead and handed Autumn over. So everything was above board. Make sure that you do that. Don't release the money ahead of time. They may ask, and this goes for breeders as well, they may ask for a deposit. Don't give the deposit unless you have something in writing from them saying that the deposit is or is not refundable and what are the conditions for the refund. Personally, I would not do a non-refundable deposit unless it's somebody I know. If it's somebody, for instance, I have a lot of people on Facebook that I am friends with. While I have not met them personally, I have spoken with them on Facebook for years now. I know they're very well respected in the Sheltie community, and I would feel comfortable with them giving them a non-refundable deposit because I know I'm not going to back out on getting the puppy. But if it's somebody I didn't know, somebody who I haven't really had much dealings with, I would not feel comfortable doing that. Look at this from the other direction. I had a puppy I bred one time that the gentleman gave me a deposit on. He kept hum-hawing around about picking the puppy up, and I kept it. Of course, I trained it with my dogs because I wanted it potty trained. I wanted it basic trained, and I went ahead and did that. And At 4 months of age, he backed out, went and got a different breed puppy, came in and showed me the puppy, all proud of it, and wanted his money back. That puppy's grown out an extra 2 months with me. I have trained this dog. I've held on to this dog for you, and now you want your money back? So make sure it's clear whether or not it's a refundable deposit. And if it's somebody you don't know real well or somebody you've never really dealt with before, make sure you have it in writing, whether or not it's a refundable deposit. Make sure if it is a non-refundable, you get references. You talk to people. You make sure that this is somebody who's not going to scam you out of money. I see it every day on Facebook. People asking, does anybody know this breeder? I gave them a deposit. Now I can't get in touch with them. And nobody knows them. Or people pop up and say, oh, I've heard them scam people out of money before. No, ask questions before you give the money. The breeder is not the only one allowed to ask questions. You can ask questions too. You ask for references. You ask the local breed club, have they heard of this person? Is this someone who's going to scam me? They're going to answer you. They're going to tell you straight up, we've had problems with that person in the past. Don't give them your money. They're going to tell you that because they don't want the reputation of their breed in their area to be tainted because of this breeder. Make sure you ask questions. You have that right. Ask questions. Don't be shy. Advocate for yourself and your future dog. There's also the option of dogs who have been dropped, dogs you see on the side of the road. And I've had those. I've had dogs that have come up to my yard and I've kept them. I've had dogs that I have seen on the side of the road and I rescue. What's the first thing you want to do? Especially in July and August and in January and February. Most especially then, but also anytime. Take the dog to the vet or to the groomer or to one of the local pet chains, for instance, PetSmart or Petco, and have them scan for a microchip. A lot of dogs bolt, run off, dig out, jump fences, break leashes because of fireworks. Fireworks scare most dogs unless they are specifically trained to be around loud explosions. More dogs come up missing in July and in January than any other time of the year because of that fact. So if you find a dog wanders up, you pick up a dog from the side of the road. First thing you're going to do is take it and have it checked for a microchip. Once you get the information from the microchip, they're going to give you the name of the microchip company, the microchip number, and a phone number. You're going to call them up and find out information or give information so that you can meet up with the owner and return the dog. If it's a dog that's been dropped, they're not going to call you back. You're going to find out very quickly. If it's a dog you cannot get the information on, check the local vets. If it's a groomed dog, check the local groomers to see if anybody recognizes the dog. Once you do that, now you're going to, okay, there's no microchip or the microchip's not any good. The local vets, local groomers don't know this dog. Then you can feel more comfortable keeping the dog. I personally would put it out on some of the Facebook groups, some of the Reddit groups, some of the groups like that. I have found, especially if it's a local group. I belong to the Facebook group for our tiny town, for the town next to us, the bigger town down the road, and for our county and the county next to us. I belong to all those groups. I would put it out on all of those groups that I found this dog and see if anybody recognizes it, knows who it belongs to. Because there could be a kid out there who's grieving their lost dog because the dog ran off because of fireworks or for whatever reason. Let me tell you, like I said, I'm going off on tangents here. Let me tell you about an issue with a microchip. Make sure your microchip is registered to you or to someone you know. Hank is registered to his breeder, but she knows how to get in touch with me. Autumn is registered to us on her microchip. Make sure your dog is chipped and it is registered to you. There is a Sheltie breeder, and I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the story. There is a lot of nuance to the story, but no, there is a semi-happy ending at the end. This breeder was on her way to nationals. She was dropping one of her dogs off that had finished showing and was going to its forever home, but the dog was very attached to one of her dogs that she was currently showing. They were best friends. She had not gotten a championship on the dog she was keeping. She was planning on completing that championship after the nationals. The dog was almost championed out. So on the way to nationals, she dropped off the dog that was getting the new home along with her dog to help transition the dog that was going to the new home into into the home with its best friend, then she would swing back by a week later and pick her dog back up and go back home. She thought that would be the easiest way to ease the dog into a new situation. Instead of just throwing the dog in with strangers in a different state, I have my best buddy while I get settled in, and then best buddy goes home while after I've already gotten used to my new owners. That shows you a responsible breeder right there. Well, shortly after she left, the new owner's father had a heart attack. They left the two dogs in the backyard and went to the hospital. A couple of hours later, somebody came back to the house to check on the dogs and take them inside. The breeder's dog was gone. The dog that was going to the new home was still there. The gate was shut. It wasn't padlocked. It was shut, though. But her dog was gone. This was on I want to say Thursday or Friday. No, this was Thursday. The next day was Good Friday. Somebody picked the dog up, took it to the local pound. According to that state's rules, they were supposed to keep the dog for 3 business days before they released the dog to a rescue. The dog was brought in on a Friday. By that point, the breeder had already been notified that her dog was missing, and so she turned around, left Nationals, immediately came back. She was already back in the state looking for her dog at the time it was turned into the pound. They ran the microchip. The microchip was chipped back to her vet. It was not registered back to her. It was registered to her vet. This was on a Good Friday in late afternoon, and they said, look, we're closing. It's Easter weekend. We're closing for the holiday. Call us back Monday morning. We'll pull the records. Okay, fine. That was Friday. So 3 business days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They should not have released the dog until Wednesday. Had they followed their state laws, they would have called back on Monday morning, got the information from the vet, called the breeder who was there in town, and she would have stopped by and picked her dog up. Not a problem. Nope. On Sunday, they released the dog to a rescue, the local breed rescue. It took this lady over $200,000 and 2 years for her to get her dog back because the rescue refused to release the dog back to her because they are so anti-breeder. But get this, there was evidence that the dog, show dog, Sheltie, long coat, was shaved. Her coat was ruined. She had been bred at least a couple of times. No clue where the puppies were. Her dental work was horrible, and she had, shall we say, mental issues at this point. The dog was never shown again. She had to be spayed immediately as soon as she made it back home. She lived out her life with the breeder. The breeder refused to let this dog out of her sight. She became that paranoid about this dog, but the dog was ruined. Some say it's because of the rescue. Some say it's because the pound didn't keep the hold that state law mandated. Some people say it was the breeder. Some people say it was the microchip. There's a lot of different theories, and you can draw your own conclusions. But that just goes to show, make sure your microchip is registered to you or to someone who can get in touch with you, for instance, like Hank. So make sure that if you do have a dog that wanders up or one you pick up, you get that microchip checked because there's somebody looking for that dog. There's somebody who loves that dog, hopefully. In some cases, it could be a dog that was purposely dropped, and in that case, you're free to keep the dog. Just make sure you go through all the steps to ensure that this isn't a dog that some third grader is just bawling their eyes out over losing. That should give you some ideas on where to find a dog that you're looking for, how to go about finding the dog, and we'll talk about a lot more of this stuff in more in depth in future videos. Like I mentioned before, last time around, I proposed a situation, asked for your input, and so let me give you mine. I proposed 80-year-old grandma. She's lonely. She gets out and about a little bit, but not much. She's a little bit mobile. Some grandmas are out running 24/7, but this is a grandma who, she goes to her doctor visits. She has people who come and visit her. She mostly stays at home, putters around the house, does a bit of housework. I'm thinking about my own grandmother here. What breed or breeds would you recommend for her, and or what questions would you ask to further narrow down? My first question is, what size dog would you feel most comfortable with? If you feel perfectly fine with a larger dog, that's going to be one thing. If you're more comfortable with a very small dog, that's something else. The second question is grooming. How comfortable are you with grooming? Are you the kind of person who wants a dog to sit in your lap while you run a brush over it constantly just to keep your hands busy and mobile? Or do you want a dog who's wipe and go, who has no grooming needs at all? Now, here are my 4 picks. Let's start big and go small. Big, I would start with a greyhound. A greyhound, especially if you get a rescue greyhound, those are already adults and they're awesome. If you can just open the back door, let them run out and play for a few minutes, let them come back in, they're just going to lay there for the rest of the day. They are very chill dogs. They're very wash and go, very short hair, just run a damp rag over them. They're good to go. Next is the Basset Hound. Yeah, the Basset Hound. They are very laid back dogs. I will say that the puppies are very, very hard to potty train. Trust me, I've had several Basset Hounds in my classes, and that's the number one complaint is they're hard to potty train. I would recommend for them to go with an older puppy or a younger adult, but they also let them out in the backyard for a few minutes and let them come back in and they're fine. Now, if you want a dog that you can keep inside primarily most of the time, in fact, if you litter box train or potty pad train them, you don't even have to let them out. Both of them do require some degree of grooming, one more than the other. One does have to go to a groomer. The other one, not so much, as long as you can keep it brushed. But they're both smaller dogs. One's a very calm dog. One's a little more playful, but they're both really great dogs, and they're dogs I would definitely consider having myself. The larger the two is, and also the more calm of the two, is going to be your Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. If I was to go for a dog smaller than my Shelties, that's the breed I would go for. Cavalier King Charles Spaniels are spaniels. They're hunting dogs that were bred down to be gentlemen's lap dogs. So they're really great dogs, but they do have curly hair around their ears, around their tail, that sort of thing. So you have to keep it brushed in order that you're not going to have mats in it. But they are playful, but they're calm playful, and they're very sweet dogs. And then the smallest of them, but the most grooming required, is going to be your Maltese. Maltese are more playful than the Cavalier King Charles Spaniels, but they're also calm, sweet dogs. They don't mind snuggling for hours on end. You can keep them in the long show coat if you prefer, but it's a lot easier, especially for seniors, if you keep them in what's called a puppy cut. With the puppy cut, it's cut up closer to the body, and they're really cute. You just have a little bit of maintenance to do there, but remember, their hair is very fine and silky, so that fine silky will tangle, remember, under the armpits, behind the ears, and the backs of the back legs, and the tail are the main places you need to brush. Now, those are my picks. For the next episode, what breed would you recommend for? Have someone who needs a service dog. They don't need it so much for a seeing eye dog because they're not blind. They don't need a hearing dog because they're not deaf, but they have something like POTS, or they're diabetic, or they have epilepsy, something along those lines. They need a dog that can tune into them, a dog who can alert them when something needs to be alerted to. Which breed would you recommend, or what questions would you ask? As I mentioned before, Hank is a Sheltie, and he's also my diabetic alert dog. I'm going to do my best to come up with 4 dogs that are not Shelties. That way, I'm not biased towards Shelties, but I can tell you what dogs, and I have trained service dogs. I will tell you what breeds ended up being the easiest to train for service dog work, and which ones actually did the work the way they needed to do it the best. So put your comments down there. What breed of service dogs have you seen or used, and what were your results with them, and which ones would you recommend going forward? So that's it for this time. The next video coming out will be my breed video, and the breed is the Brittany Spaniel. I've already posted Irish Wolfhound. Next up is Brittany Spaniel. So I look forward to seeing you there.